Awesome. Well, welcome everyone to the Sustainability Alumni Symposium, Modern Day Careers in Sustainability. My name is Cameron Skinner, and I am the assistant for the Georgia College Office of Sustainability. I'd like to thank our co-sponsor for this event, the Career Center, for partnering with us and for all of the assistance they provided over the last few weeks. I'd also like to recognize that our Chief Sustainability Officer, Lori Hamilton, is with us today. Thank you, Lori, for joining us and for always supporting events like the Alumni Symposium. Before I get into introducing our alumni panel, I really wanted just to say how excited I am for today's discussion. As an alumnus of Georgia College and a professional now working in the sustainability field, I really have a sincere appreciation for this line of work. So the goal of this event is to highlight some of the career paths that are available within the sustainability industry. This industry is growing in both size and diversity, and navigating a career field like the sustainability one can sometimes be difficult and overwhelming. So hopefully after our discussion today, you'll feel a little more at ease and become even more excited about the opportunities that could be out there waiting for you. I wanted to go through just a few housekeeping rules also before we get started. First, I think everyone's is, but just please keep your microphones muted throughout the duration of the event. It'll just allow for a more enjoyable listening experience. Without any interruptions or distractions. And second, we do encourage you to have your video cameras turned on so that the event is a bit more interactive. However, it's not a requirement and it is completely up to you. Finally, if you have any questions during the panel discussion, please jot them down and hold them for the end because there will be a 30-minute Q&A session. And if you would prefer to ask your questions through the chat function, that is completely fine, as our moderator will address the panel with those questions as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest alumni, starting with Andrew Wright. Andrew Wright graduated in 2017 with a BS in Environmental Science. While attending GCSU, he was heavily involved in the Sustainability Council, where he started the campus community garden and the composting program. He served in AmeriCorps after graduating, teaching a master composter recycler program. Andrew now serves as a customer service associate at Rubicon, working to end waste in all its forms. Evan Hearn is a GC Environmental Science alumnus who became interested in sustainability during his study abroad in France. He started his sustainability work as a compost intern, supporting a waste to compost process and improving the quality of the compost through research and the training of interns. After graduating, Evan combined his experience in commercial real estate and sustainability to begin working for Yardi Energy, supporting sustainability analytics through their products and services for the last 3 years in Atlanta. Evan now works on Yardi Energy's benchmarking team, supporting real estate clients' efforts to report cost and consumption to various state and local ordinances. Evan's team consults on projects related to LEED, GRSB, and energy efficiency, and works closely with sustainability directors of commercial and multifamily real estate holdings across the US and Canada. The team also supports international clients who are more focused on investor satisfaction as it pertains to sustainable building practices. Evan spends his free time walking his dog, doing jiu-jitsu, and getting more into conservation diving. Emma Brazick is the campus recycling coordinator in the Office of Solid Waste Management and Recycling at Georgia Tech, where she oversees waste operations and pursues zero waste programs. Before coming to Georgia Tech, Emma worked at Keeter Environmental Services, managing the waste and recycling program for commercial properties, malls, and office buildings. Emma attended Georgia College, where she earned a Bachelor of Science in Economics. While in school, she was involved in SGA, Delta Sigma Pi, and worked in the Office of Sustainability. Emma is an Atlanta Sustainability Ambassador and is currently pursuing a Master's in Sustainable Energy and Environmental Management at Georgia Tech. Her lifelong passion for the environment and seeking best use scenarios for resources has cultivated a career in the waste industry. Jacob Diech is an alumnus of Georgia College and a rising graduate student in the field of sustainable community development at the University of Florida. Growing up, his education and curiosity became profoundly interested in the concepts of sustainability as a lifestyle and culture. In his undergrad, Jake spearheaded the GC composting program and helped create a local community garden in a food insecure and impoverished neighborhood of Milledgeville, Georgia. Currently, he is working on a community composting program for local restaurants of Gulf Breeze, Florida, in an effort to generate food waste recycling in local food production. And finally, we have Julia Gabrelitis, who is an environmental science alumna who became interested in all things waste while attending Georgia College. Her passion led her to be a co-founder of a food waste reduction organization on campus, which gave her a foundation to work in the waste industry after college. She is a project manager for waste management sustainability services in Knoxville, Tennessee, where she organizes better practices to reduce or recycle hazardous and non-hazardous waste for a larger aluminum manufacturing company. Today's panel discussion will be moderated by one of GC's very own faculty members. Jahan Aljabagi is a professor of business law and ethics in the J. Whitney Bunting College of Business. A graduate of UGA Law, she served as the president of the Environmental Law Association and as a co-president of the Coalition Against Environmental Racism. While in law school, she interned for the Western Environmental Law Center and the Oregon Public Interest Research Group as an environmental advocate. She writes a column on rural sustainability in her local paper and recently published an article in the Berkeley Business Law Journal on creating a regulatory framework for reducing plastics. She leads a study abroad class focused on sustainability and international environmental laws and also serves on GC's Sustainability Council. At this time, I'd like to turn things over to Professor Jahan Aljabagi.
Thanks, everyone, and thank you so much for these outstanding students or past students for joining us for this discussion. I'm going to call on, we have quite a few questions to get through, and if everyone answered every question fully, we'd be here for 4 hours. So I'm going to call on people one at a time, and if you particularly would like to add on to an answer, or if you feel like you would really also like to answer this question, then please raise your hand after that person that I call on starts. So I'm going to start with Emma first. First question we'd like to ask you is, how did you get into the sustainability field and what makes you stay?
Awesome. Well, first, thank you so much for having us also. I'm really excited. The way I got into sustainability, I have been asked this many times and I don't necessarily have a very clear answer. I've always been interested in the environment, even when I was younger. I always enjoyed playing outside, looking for insects, and just enjoyed conservation. When I moved to Georgia, I made my parents drive me to drop our recycling off because our neighborhood didn't have a collection. So there's always just been this kind of passion inside me to seek the best use for materials, to not let them just go to the landfill, to try to use things that have been created and try to create them into something else. So it's always just kind of been in me, and I've been really fortunate to find different ways to engage in that, especially at Georgia College, that really helped launch me into understanding that this could be a career path.
Evan, what led you on that path?
I think it's great to be to be here. It's really exciting to see the work that Cam and the office has been up to since the 3 years have graduated. So really grateful to be here, and happy to share my experience. So I think when I came back from study abroad, I just left chemistry major, and I had always cared about climate change. And so I was encouraged to go ahead and get involved with anything that would have to do with environmental science. And I remember I had a phone call with Dr. Otter, and he said, "Hey, you should apply for the open compost position." And at the time I knew that diverting waste was important, and so I started working at the Office of Sustainability, and just sort of took off from there, and just that really proliferated my interest in sustainability. That, to make a long story really short, I think when you're part of a system and you want to ameliorate it, and you see the problems that exist and you want to solve them, and you're at Georgia College and you're having these, you're surrounded by so many passionate people, it gives you the opportunity to really expound upon your own personal passion. I sort of began looking at what I was going to do outside of college, and everyone has a plan A through C. And I think my plan A was to go to the Peace Corps. And then when that didn't work out, I had an internship in a commercial real estate firm, a top 5 one, I think my sophomore year. And I knew that sustainability was pretty big when it came to real estate. And so I started looking for jobs, and I did a bunch of networking. That kind of led me on a path to kind of make decisions and figure out what I was passionate about. But ultimately, you know, I found the sustainability field through working for the Office of Sustainability. And that was, I think that was a big part of where, you know, my passion, my interest in sustainability really started. So what makes me stay is probably that we have so many learning opportunities in this industry, and there are so many different aspects of it that are constantly changing, and it is in flux. And not only that, but you're also part of an industry that is trying to make the world a better place. And ultimately, I mean, if you're in real estate or you're, you know, doing what a number of these other 4 amazing people are doing, there are opportunities to be a part of some amazing projects and you know, meet so many interesting people. So I think that's why I'll probably continue to stay, and I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. So, yeah.
Thank you, Evan. Andrew, how did your experience at Georgia College lead you to your first position in this field?
Well, I had a lot to talk about, that's for sure. I was pretty involved in like the composting and gardening projects at the school, and I decided to go into AmeriCorps and teach composting, recycling, just because I loved like the concept of what the program stood for, and the ability to educate more people. But I was kind of already doing that at Georgia College. When we phased in the composting system, we had to educate the cafeteria staff on what was composting and what was not. And I mean, even just getting it past the proposals and everything was all education. So yeah, I think that the groundwork for like anything that you take on extra at school, it's gonna like give you a lot of talking points, because that's just, you're going up above and beyond. And Georgia College allowed me to do that, so it was great.
Does anyone else have a different experience of how either your classes or an experience you had at Georgia College helped prepare you or led you to the position that you're in? Emma?
I guess I can go. I think I'm the only non-environmental science major from Georgia College on the panel. I was a econ major at GC and minored in Spanish. Was often mistaken for an environmental science major, so no hard feelings to my fellow panelists, because I was part of Environmental Science Club and really enjoyed a lot of those different topics. That just wasn't where I saw myself going in the future. So there is a class for environmental economics. I'm sure the class offerings have also changed with the sustainability certification. That was being worked on right as I was graduating. So I know there are a couple other classes that can help plug into that. So definitely having a different perspective and an econ perspective really helped set me up. As an econ major, we have to complete a research project our senior year for the econometrics class. And I chose, since sustainability wasn't necessarily plugged into that major, I chose to do a project on LEED certification. And so there's still options to kind of guide your interests in your education along the way, even if it isn't just, you know, structured into the class. So I even got to teach my professors a lot about LEED and use their database for my regression analysis project. So definitely through academic as well as, you know, some of the more leadership opportunities, Georgia College really set me up for those, and definitely encourage everyone to think about how they can plug that into whatever they're studying.
Yes, Evan.
I'd like to add on to that, because if there's any undergrads that are interested in LEED, I think you can, and Emma, correct me if I'm wrong, you can still get the certification for free as an undergrad. I also wanted to add on to that. Lori, through the Office of Sustainability, gave me so many opportunities to kind of step up and be a project manager. I remember doing that air quality project where, you know, we did sort of a little air quality analysis in some of the buildings, and we presented the data. You know, at the time it was very big deal. But I mean, those little aspects of projects where you're managing and you're working through something that you have the ability to manage and decide how the metrics are going to work, really benefited to my decision into going into sustainability in business. You know, I'll say I probably wasn't the best in the lab. I think Dr. Vandervoort's on the call, but starting the compost research and getting the opportunity to kind of work a little bit with it in the lab, I'll probably never step foot in a lab again. But just the culmination of all those opportunities presented to me and to, you know, my classmates, I think, really just gave me more encouragement and to continue the work and gave me the confidence to have a good resume and to go and find those positions that are open. So.
It's great to hear the diversity of experience that you guys have had. Julia, I wanted to ask you about your search for a job in sustainability. Could you describe to us what that was like for you? Did you have any surprises along the way?
Yes. The job search was hard. I thought I knew a lot of people, and I did my best to network with the people that I had been introduced in college. And I think one thing that was difficult was that I didn't know exactly what I was passionate about. When I began to network, it was a lot of telling people kind of my story, and I was very general. It was very like, I'm interested in sustainability and I have this little bit of experience, but I'm open to other things. And when you go to a professional with that dialogue, they're likely not going to be able to help you the best that they can if you don't tell them exactly what you want. And so what that led to was just, oh, like, I think I might know someone who can help you out. And so it was like this continuous, like, oh, I think I know someone who can help you out, because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, which is normal for someone who's graduated. So I was doing the regular job searching online, and I was like, had to really sit down with myself and say, okay, what did I gain at Georgia College? What do I know about, which was a little bit of the waste industry, some lab work, but nothing too crazy. So I was very opportunistic and kind of took what was out in front of me, saw the job with waste management, and they were hiring young people. But something that I also noticed that was difficult, aside from just the networking, was that there's a lot of I don't want to say exploited, but I'll use it. Exploited sustainable jargon out there in those job descriptions. They say, you know, hey, we're here to like up our numbers. We want to be more sustainable and we need you. We need your experience. And that kind of provided this a little bit of like a farce, because like I remember learning in a class that I had with Dr. Arter, and it was like green. Like a lot of these industries are using this like green jargon to just capture you in. And that's kind of what the job descriptions do now, because sustainability is this thing that everybody wants and to make themselves look really good. So I was also struggling to find the job that really actually meant what they said. And it required a lot more research and interviews, and actually asking them, like, what are you doing that is sustainable? What are your numbers kind of right now? Is this just like a little piece of the business, or is this like the actual, like, your motto? Like, this is what you want eventually. So it takes a lot of hard conversations during the interviews. And but waste management, yeah, they had a lot of good statistics, and I thought it was a good opportunity for me just to see what else the waste industry, what else I could learn from it. And I definitely am learning a lot about it too. So
it's a very interesting perspective that we have to be discerning as customers, whether or not what they're telling us with a product is what they say it is. Is it truly using less water, et cetera? And you also have to be discerning as a potential employee. Is this position that they're offering you truly what you envision it? So I appreciate you sharing that with us. Jay,
Yeah.
would you mind sharing with us what a typical day on the job is like for you? What exactly do you do?
Oh, well, I mean, so right now, currently, I've taken my focus on food waste management and solid waste management as a whole. And essentially, I'm down from Atlanta to Gulf Breeze, Florida. And from Atlanta, I was working in a composting company called Compost Now. So they really helped generate a lot of the ideas that I now use at my disposal every day. So while I was here in Gulf Breeze, I realized, wow, restaurants aren't, doing what they should be doing, obliging to the island authority's mission on being, zero waste or as zero waste as possible. And looking at a lot of other composting companies that I've researched in the past, I've noticed that some even just started out just from guys working in the kitchen that just wanted to recycle. So I just said, okay, let's do that too. So while I'm here in Florida, summer and for now waiting to start grad school, I figured, okay, I'm going to get myself into these positions, into these spots. I'm now working at 2 different restaurants, and I've got both GMs on board with me to start out this local composting program. The only issue is you deal with a lot of environmental and legal that you need to obviously have on your side to do that. So right now I've been working with the Island Authority here. They are in charge of all development projects. But they're in the course of switching overall management. So it's just been kind of a stall right now. But currently working on just trying to make wherever I am a more sustainable place by focusing on what I know, which is solid waste management. And so that's putting myself into these places like, Publix or large grocery stores or any place that generates, these large sums of waste, and then try and incorporate actual management methods to this.
Andrew, what about you? What do you do?
So right now I'm working at Rubicon. We manage a range of clients, trash services, but trash and recycling. But the company's goal is, I'm talking about Julia and companies standing by, the company's mission is to end waste in all its forms. So the concept of what I do is to increase the efficiency of, I work on the Sam's Club and Walmart account. So I manage like a certain territory, and we kind of customize each store's trash services based on when their compactor is actually full. And so in order just to reduce, every step of the line, the gas, it being hauled when it's, halfway full, like taking it to the landfill. They're trying to, eliminate all those waste that's happening there. And they're doing really well. So yeah, I can manage up to like 400 stores in my single territory. It's pretty busy.
To what extent do you guys borrow ideas from other companies, other countries? Do you have interaction? Because what you were saying with the trash, for instance, and like improving efficiency in the Netherlands, almost all the trash cans had solar panels on them so that they could then notify the trash collection service when they're full. And so they're not going around picking up trash cans unnecessarily. They're doing it when it's necessary. So to what extent do you guys reach out to colleagues, professionals, and other countries to improve the ideas within your own organizations? Emma? You may not have an answer for this, someone else. But
I could.
Jake, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I've only been working for companies that are solely based in Atlanta or in Florida, that are still small, right? That have not reached out to a global or international authority, right? But I will say that, with the program that I'm going into for graduate school, this program is all about taking sustainability to the international level, talking to different organizations have had made their progress or are still struggling or found new innovative ways to handle their stress versus another, and then combine this all together. So UF, which is where I'm going to, their program actually collaborates 33 other international schools all around the world, and mostly in Africa and Latin America. So, there's definitely interactions going on internationally to make some segue to more sustainable innovations. But I think I think we just need more of that. Yeah, that's all. But I personally haven't had an experience in that.
I will say, so at Georgia Tech, we have a source separated recycling program for most of our general campus. And if you're not familiar with that, essentially there are specific containers for each type of material. So your plastic, aluminum, paper, cardboard, instead of being mixed in a single stream, they are kept separate. This is probably the more common in Europe and in Asia. And it helps just keep contamination down, because when you generally say recycling, people often, want to just, wishfully put something in there that might not belong. And we know that creates contamination. So that is probably the main area that some of these other influences come from. And luckily our system has been set up that way since the 1990s. And it's something that we've been able to keep in place, even as single stream becomes kind of the automatic way for recycling, especially in the US. So keeping these materials and having examples, even international examples, of the importance and the recyclability of materials by keeping them separate. And that also helps our campus community understand some of the harder to recycle items, such as glass and plastic film. We also have a small styrofoam recycling program. So having them understand that when materials are separate on their own and they can be taken to a specific place to be, remanufactured or processed, that's how they can be recycled. Sometimes when these materials go to larger facilities, they can't be sorted. Like styrofoam can't go through a giant single stream facility. It'll get broken apart and is kind of worthless, useless at that point. So that is probably the main way that we look at some outside influences.
Yeah, Evan?
Wasn't sure if I was supposed to raise my hand. Two things. Number one, I just wanted to comment that Andrew's company, Rubicon Global, is like revolutionizing the waste industry in the way that we do power shopping. So something that my company does, it's a small part, is called power shopping. We help large companies in their portfolios find alternative utility companies to get lower rates on energy usage. In a similar sense, and I had the opportunity to meet the director of Rubicon Global like a year ago, and kind of talked about what we do and what they do. And it's super fascinating that they are power shopping essentially for waste and helping companies have access to local composting companies, different recycling companies. And Andrew, you can expand upon this. But I just wanted to comment that what Rubicon Global is doing is really amazing. And I'm really excited to see where that concept goes in the future. And hopefully I can get my company's office to actually compost with Rubicon Global, which is what we're trying to do. So Andrew, I'll have to connect with you about that at some point. And then the other thing I wanted to say is just comment without getting down a rabbit hole. I have several clients. My region is in the Northeast, and so I have 8 clients who have properties in New York, New Jersey, Canada, and sort of that area. And what we're really seeing is for properties that have foreign investment, particularly you mentioned, Doctor, the money coming from Copenhagen or Denmark. So some of these international funds is what I would call them, real estate investment funds. In other words, what I would call them is asset managers, essentially. And so with this reporting program that's becoming very popular called GRESB, which is stands for the Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark. It uses ESG performance. ESG is environmental sustainability goal performance to basically manage these assets, this money that is coming from shareholders into large properties and different types of properties. It can be multifamily, it can be office space, you know, all different types of real estate. This is putting, there's a lot more value being placed on the sustainability of the assets in the real estate world. And that's coming from direct pressure from Denmark. And we actually had a call 2 weeks ago with one of our clients who were completing some reporting. And when I say reporting, I mean by pulling, you know, cost and consumption data, and we report it through Energy Star. And, you know, I had to get the Wikipedia for Energy Star, so I didn't give any wrong definitions, but it's a program run by the US EPA. So this is a US-based program, US Department of Energy, to promote energy efficiency. And so we have an EPA-run program being influenced by foreign investment, because they are saying we're placing a higher value on sustainability of managing assets than most of the US-based companies. So we're having a lot of clients come to us saying, hey, we really need to report for GRESB, and we really need to make sure our data is right and very precise. And in fact, for waste, and Emma mentioned single stream, which I really hope that we can get the single stream going pretty soon. It'll make my job a lot easier, especially when it comes to waste and converting waste, and making sure that we are adequately acquiring daily. And that also takes me back to when we were working with the compost, trying to figure out how we're supposed to weigh it with the bins and whatnot. Very similar situation there, but on a much broader level. How do we quantify how much waste we're using and do it correctly in our country, versus if I'm supposed to report to a more European influenced reporting compliance program. And the fact is, we use the EPA conversion standards. So yeah, I would say there's a lot of influence coming from Europe and other countries. So yeah.
This question is for all of you. I'll ask the question, you all can think of the answer. Who is, or what inspired you to pursue your career? And how were you inspired by either that person or that event? So I'll start with, oh, Jake's ready to dive in. Come on.
Yeah, well, I had a fantastic experience studying abroad in San Salvador Island in Bahamas through Georgia College, through Dr. DeVore's ecology class. And I think it's really cool because this class is ecology, but a lot of different students were in that, you know, from many different fields, art, whatever, literature, all stuff. So the interesting thing though was you were coming to this island, a lot of people who had the assumption that, oh, we're going to be on some nice fancy resort or whatever. Not at all. This is one of the furthest islands in this chain. So if you can think, like, transportation for anything takes a vast amount of resources and a long time to get there. So first thing coming onto this island was seeing poverty in many different ways. For starters, a lot of the people are living off the land, generally and naturally. That's what they've done for many years and generations. The interesting thing though is that there's never been, or at least there is now, a disconnect to their home and how they raise that, how they culture that, and how they help that grow. So interestingly, they live off the land, but a lot of the soil, for example, has a lot of like salt intrusion in it. It's not fertile enough to grow, or at least it could be if they were incorporating more practices or whatever in agriculture. And another thing is they're feeding off of a lot of the estuaries and a lot of these bays. And so essentially they're ruining their own habitat. It's like that one story of Easter Island or whatever, where everybody vanished, you know? And essentially, if they don't become more in tune with what they're dealing with their issue, then they'll never get fixed, and they're just going to continuously eat away their resources. So this was like a big eye-opening moment for me. It's like, wow, these people love their land. They've lived on it for generations, whole family and their past families, and yet they're watching it just fall to ruins, and they don't know why. They don't know why. So that was a big eye-opener for me. You know, is seeing a small culture like that literally put itself down the drain in a way. And you know, that's what really is going on.
Julia?
Yes. And so the question was, who or what inspired us to pursue our career? I'd say my story is very similar to, I'd say Emma's. Started off young. And my mom she came from Korea. So she grew up after the Korean War. And so she already had this mindset of sustainability ingrained in her mind. She just didn't have a term to it. But she just did not like to waste food, or like we'd go on walks and she would just say, Julia, we're going to take home that person's couch that's on the side of the road. And I get really embarrassed. But now I'm just like her. But so that's kind of when the little seed was planted. And but it wasn't until Netflix and Netflix documentaries scared the crap out of me, because they were just showing us how terrible the earth is turning. And so that was actually at the beginning of my college career. And before my freshman year of college, I then had a personal experience, kind of like Jake did, where went to a different country, but I actually had been experiencing some really bad health problems at the time, just like really bad skin issues. Doctors told me that it was just a genetic thing. Me being half Asian, it could be just something with my genes. It was a chronic illness or something. And so I just kind of accepted it. But when I went to this foreign country, that skin problem was completely alleviated. And at that time, I was also watching Netflix. And so I just saw how the world was just like, we are polluting this earth, all the chemicals and everything is affecting humans, essentially. And so I kind of took this personal experience and ran with it. And so that's kind of so I had the seed and then the spark, and I was really passionate. So I got a minor in public health while also majoring in environmental science, and was really ambitious when I got to Georgia College. But what sustained that ambition were the people around me, the people who were pouring into me, and the ideas that I could come up with, brainstorm with people, and you would just be fed so much positive energy. You could go from that. And so I'd say I just have this general love for sustainability, but I am learning that the waste industry is so information specific that, you know, it can be really defeating at times. And Georgia College created this environment that was so positive. And even though like the organization that Cameron and I started, it may not be at its full potential right now. But we were still able to get a lot of positive energy from the staff and the professors. But now in the real world, I'm actually in the season of life where it's very, very hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, just with where I am. And I'm working in Knoxville, and it's in this really ancient, not ancient, but it's like a very old manufacturing industry, and they're just doing everything backwards. And so it's a very defeating place, because I'm the only person that has these little ideas, but I'm going up against, you know, a really big industry. So this isn't waste management. So my job is waste management is contracted with a aluminum manufacturing company. And so I'm referring to this aluminum manufacturing company, and waste management, they do a lot of great stuff in terms of recycling, composting, but we have to adjust to what the client needs, because we need to make money. And so if that is sending things to the landfill, then we kind of have to do it. And we can give better options, but sometimes there's a lot of resistance. So yeah, for me, it's an uphill battle, and it's really great. It's smooth sailing at times. I get inspired by you guys, but it's also like really, really hard to like keep that inspiration going sometimes.
Does anyone else want to share who or what inspired them to pursue the career? I'll move on to a next question, which Julia touched on. You know, I hear Evan saying that he's trying to get them to compost, and that Emma's talking about styrofoam. They're starting to recycle it, but it's a huge challenge to recycle particular materials. What challenges do you face within your industry regarding the work that you do? Andrew?
Sorry. Well, it's kind of interesting because Walmart and Sam's Club, so we recently got under contract again with them. We were kind of in a flux for a while, though we were still we service most of the United States for them. We're kind of, I think that the issue kind of is what Julia was talking about with you have a lot of ideas and there's a person who could do so much more, but we have to like build this relationship for them to see the possibility of working with us or, going the extra step, because that's kind of what Rubicon, Evan was kind of mentioning it. We have such a, Apple's one of our clients. We learn how to recycle their like plexiglass, like things that we have set up now, and their masks. And that's kind of like what we provide for our clients. So if anything, when you're saying about the challenges, there's always challenges. But I would say that the biggest issue is the pace that things are going at, and whether they're actually going to get to where you want them to go, regardless of how good you do it, because there is, bottom lines, and they have to see, they don't want to go into it without, a sure thing, and you can't always provide a sure thing. So we are working on the relationship, and there is hope, but how long you want to hold out for and put in all this effort into, constantly educating people, because, they forget or they don't remember those other options. Those are the kind of difficulties.
Emma, do you think that the sustainability industry is growing, and or how do you see the outlook for the future?
Sure, I do think it's growing, especially just understanding and integrating it into companies. Not everyone's going to have sustainability in their title at their job, but companies at their core are going to have policies, even small things. Turn the lights off when you leave a conference room, or don't leave the door open to the outside, close it. You can even see Kroger has the shields over there, at least my Kroger installed them, like over the refrigerated sections instead of just having them open. So these ideas we're seeing trickling in. Even the other day I was at Target, and there are, we're starting to see trends of Dove has a refillable deodorant now. There are Crest toothbrushes where you can pop the tops off and keep using the same handle. There's a lot of new cleaning products that are refillable or dehydrated, and then you add the water at home to reduce that transportation and carbon emission. So I really do think, especially in the United States, the bubble is starting to burst. It hasn't quite happened yet, but also just a lot of personal things like those personal care products I mentioned. It's much more common for people to use those reusable storage bags instead of Ziploc baggies all the time. So I am hopeful. I do think it is sometimes bad, like Julia and Andrew mentioned, sometimes it is easy to not see the light at the end of the tunnel, but luckily we're here for each other. And I do think it is becoming a bigger trend, and even just these ideas within any job. Right out of college, I was a contractor at Delta Airlines, and I actually worked part-time, or part of the time I was there, I worked with their university recruitment team. And so I kind of had this tug inside of myself of, maybe I'm not directly working with the sustainability team that I had been working with, but I was working with this university team, and, you know, like Julia mentioned, making sure it's at the core of the company. Truly, it's not just a greenwashing effect. So there are, you know, Delta had or they still do have a carbon commitment, and they offset a lot of their carbon. Not to say, you know, jet fuel is clean in any way quite yet, but there will be kind of a shift, I believe, that it will become more effortless, and some of these policies will just kind of be at the core of whatever company you work for.
Evan, what are some ways in which you think people are making big changes in this field, how they're really impacting a larger sector? What are some either inspiring people or inspiring acts in the field of sustainability?
It's a tough question. You know, I first just want to say, Julia, you're fighting the good fight. I relate to a lot of what Andrew was talking about when he referred to a bottom line. I think my first year, there were clients that were putting their financial goals over being sustainable. And, you know, my second year, I got the opportunity to go meet a bunch of sustainability directors and talk about how our software can help improve their conservation goals. And that was a really great thing. So I feel you. You know, what are some ways that we're making a big difference in this field? I think, you know, when you watch a documentary, you can pretty easily figure out that I think 40% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from real estate. And so an important part of mitigating those emissions is making sure that buildings are using smart technology. And so trying to get that message to companies is all based on their shareholders and what value they place on sustainability, both internally. And there's a variety of factors about making suggestions to be more sustainable. And as Emma was saying, there's more opportunities for policies to change, both for inside of your business using different certifications like LEED or WELL AP, but also you know, state and local ordinances on plastic bags like you've been seeing in California. And so I think there's more to come on those, on that front. But I think one thing that we do well, that my group does pretty well, is through that Energy Star software I mentioned, it's managed by the EPA. You know, since 1992, I think it's been going, and I heard some fact about a year ago, and I looked it up to prove that it was real before I said it here. But we've mitigated 4 billion tons of energy. 4 billion in energy costs were saved while cutting emissions since 1992. And so when you have more oversight of how much data, or excuse me, how much energy use is coming from your building, and obviously I can only speak for my industry, how much your building is using, and you know that exact amount, you can figure out a way to mitigate it and start to cut costs and take advantages of structural improvements and operational improvements that not only lead to lower energy costs, but also lower emissions. And I think I've heard the word greenwashing a lot in terms of companies trying to cut their energy costs and their energy usage down. But ultimately, I say go for it. If you're gonna say, okay, like if Coke is gonna say, hey, look at how much rainwater we've dispersed, while at the same time being responsible for the majority of aluminum cans and water bottles, that's a different story. But if certain real estate holdings companies are cutting their energy and they're saying, look at how sustainable we are, I say more power to them. Yeah, I can speak to my industry. So.
Does anyone else want to speak to a person or an endeavor that you think has had a big change or big impact in this field? All right, I also see that Jake is in and out, and I'm sure he'll be back with us in just a second. I see that he's there. All right, so the next question to all of you, and I kind of suspect that we all share some common values in terms of what we may do in our own homes. But has there been anything about your career that has impacted the way you live or changed some of the practices in your own home? Emma, I'll start with you. Or Jake, while you're here and on, let's start with you and then we'll go over to Emma.
Yeah, you got to catch me while you can. Yeah, I mean, so again, my focus is solid waste management. So now, like, anytime I'm throwing something away, I cringe every time. So a big thing that I've come to understand as I've gotten myself into the sustainability industry and solid waste management industry is food particulate matter, right? That little bit left behind for anything keeps it from being recycled, right? So now, always trying to clean anything and everything before I'm throwing it away. I always actually kind of now dictate what I can buy that could be actually more easily decomposable. So like instead of buying a plastic bottle, I'm buying like a cardboard made bottle or something like that I know is going to degrade easier in a landfill, or at least thing for a collection. So yeah, all these like things that it starts to dictate how you're throwing stuff away, how you wash yourself, how you like, yeah, there's been a lot of change for me, specifically in like my waste production, for sure.
Similar to Jake, I have definitely found myself in the waste management category for my career. So that definitely spills over into my life at home. I always recycle, and even when I'm away, either lugging back bags of recyclables from the mountains or making my friends do it. So it is, that is one of the hopeful things that I see. Several of my friends recycle now, and I tend to not be, too harsh about it, forcing them to do it on their own accord. If I'm around, I'm going to make them do it. But it's really inspiring to me that they have gone on and used their own time to drop their glass off or, collect recycling. This Christmas, I got a home composter. It's, really just a wheel that you put outside and you turn it. So I've been exploring that, and it's been pretty easy so far. I live in a condo with just a porch, also like Jake, so I don't have a backyard, and keeping it full, especially the dry materials, I kind of have to go out on walks and look for some dried leaves. But it's been an adventure, and I also at work especially have really been learning a lot about plastic film. And as we know, they're not recyclable in the traditional sense. In the traditional single stream collection, they're very, prone to tangle in the machinery. So I've been collecting that on the side away from my other recyclables, and that has really made a large impact. I've really, it's a very non-disturbing material, so you kind of just shove it away, and then suddenly you have this huge, massive amount. So that visually as well has been very impactful to me. And a lot of grocery stores take it and actually work with companies that want it. So I know that's always the question of, if I drop something off somewhere, is it going to be recycled? So I know a lot of grocery stores work with Trex lumber that uses the bags to make the composite lumber that they make. So definitely waste management wise, and I, have started thinking about, clothing, trying to buy from some more sustainable companies. Luckily, I have a sister that likes to give me hand-me-downs, so that's really great secondhand. But I, just always encouraging other people by the way we live our lives. It doesn't have to be up on a soapbox, but just by example. One quote that I like to live by is, we don't need one person doing zero waste perfectly. We need a lot of people doing zero waste imperfectly. So every little bit, don't torture yourself if you can't find a substitute, but as many substitutes as you can find is what's most important.
So inspiring. Thank you for sharing that quotation and your story about the film, because I have bread bags that I just stuff with, like, as far as I can stuff. And then I take them to a grocery store, and I've always wondered, does it go anywhere? And I'm so grateful for you to tell me that someone is actually using the product in a, you know, in an end result. So that just made me feel relieved, because I've just got, you know, overflowing bags at home. Someone else have any? I mean, I love hearing what you're having to say about changes you've made in your personal life. Evan, what is something that you can share with us?
I'd be remiss and crucified if I didn't say that I have a compost pile at home, since Lori's on the call. And I've been composting my coffee since I've been drinking a lot more at the house. So I, get the compostable, at least the hemp coffee filters, and I have a little open air compost that I have back there. And fortunately, I'm renting a house, so I've got a lot of browns around here that I can grab and just keep it real easy. I even dump it off of the porch into almost like aim it into the compost bin. So I've got that going. I just need a garden to kind of top it all off and to really grow some stuff. But all I've been growing is some hot peppers. And something I've started recently too was doing like sustainable investing, like putting a little bit of money that I've made into sustainable funds that are they're kind of available. And obviously there's the chance to lose money when you invest. So I'm not advising anyone to do this, but there's more opportunities to put your money in. It's called, I think it's called conscious investing, is what people call it. And there's, I don't know, you could do it through your own bank and ask for advice, but there's a lot of funds out there that are, and ETFs and mutual funds that are dedicated to socially responsible companies and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people on this call would probably rather their money go to be invested in a company that's trying to make the world a better place. So that's one thing I've actually picked up since COVID. And then, like everybody else, I've been recycling and just have a big bin going. And we got a bunch of we don't use any plastic bags from the grocery store. And that's definitely something that I try to keep consistent. So I felt really bad about a month ago when I went to Publix and I got a bunch of the plastic bags because I'd forgotten my at-home reusable shopping bags, which have more room anyway and are way easier to carry stuff. So I felt like a real idiot that I walked out and I had all these bags. So I'm slowly whittling them down as dog poop bags and making the turnaround. So yeah.
Andrew, did you want to share something?
Yeah. I guess because I worked at the master composter, well, I guess throughout my whole life, I've always been changing and trying to improve. But what was really cool about that experience was we taught courses that were kind of, like we got a green cleaning course. So making your own cleaning products and how most of the things that we buy, they can be, substituted for things that have like 2 or 3 ingredients and are, nth of the cost that, buying cleaners are. And then, I have my own house now, so I kind of went towards getting my own house because of the, Evan and them were saying they feel bad because I want to create my own system. So I recently installed a rain barrel at my house. A lot of it is from my environmental science degree at Georgia College. Because environmental science, you focus on so many different areas, you kind of learn all the issues in all of those areas. So, like what's going wrong with birds and what's going wrong with soil and hydrology and how we use water for things that, we should be using gray water for. So I really try to do whatever I can, like know my appliances when I purchase them, their water usage, running my dishwasher when it's full, and like all those like little things. But I think the biggest thing that I really enjoy about sustainability is kind of the constant, well, I like educating people on it. So I kind of want to make my house like a, walk through and this is how you do this and this is how, so I kind of already been doing that, like Compost Now. I've never actually used their services, but I still somehow like had the top referral rating. Like I was the #1 listed name for referrals when I don't even use them. But I just talk about composting so much, and I guess I'm convincing enough that people are willing to sign up. Yeah, lead by example. When I hear information that's more dismal, kind of like what Julia was talking about, I try to do, really whatever I can to, I don't know, when I'm making a decision, make an informed decision. So even like I have an app called Seafood Watch that like when I'm ever gonna get seafood, even though it's not the most essential thing to do, I can at least like check it's not like an endangered, like where it's coming from is, ethical. I mean, there's a bunch of things you could do. There's so many, but just be a constant student and try to see problems as like turn them into solutions.
So in the last minute before we get into Q&A, I want to ask you guys, what do you think the best resource is for those who would like to seek a career in sustainability? What should people be doing now if they want to pursue a career in sustainability? Evan, what's your advice?
Well, I really was looking forward to this question for a couple of reasons, but I'll tell you one specifically is when I was at Georgia College, I was an environmental science major, and in that time I was encouraged to go to career fairs and do a lot of that. What I found was that there was this conference called Net Impact. It was a business resource group for all these people who are interested in sustainability from a business perspective. And I didn't really get that exposure until I went out to Georgia Tech and I went to their career fairs and I went to go see what everyone else is doing in sustainability. So it might be different now, but that at the time I had a chip on my shoulder and I was like, okay, I got to go to the city to find these sustainability analyst jobs. For better or for worse, whether they're actual sustainability jobs, it's not environmental compliance or testing at a nonprofit or something like that. I'm actually wanting to work in sustainability and sustainable business practices. I'll just go ahead and say that some of the best resources you can do are just go on LinkedIn, talk to people, reach out, especially to alumni. There's a lot of great alumni at Georgia College. And then, just go to conferences and I even had my little business card. I had a little like assistant director of sustainability business card that I would go hand out at conferences and meet people, all types of people. And I would talk about my experience at Georgia College and they were impressed. And I think a lot of people are impressed with a lot of students who go and do sustainability at Georgia College. And there's a big world out there and it's very exciting. Your areas of interest are always going to change, but in sustainability, you got to give yourself a break because there's so many different areas to focus on. Also certifications, certification. I don't have it, Emma has it. I think maybe Andrew has it, but get your GA, get it early. It's free, I believe, for undergrads. So that's all my advice.
Jake?
Yeah, Evan, that was some great stuff. Honestly, the only little last bit I'd add to that, just some simple words of advice is sustainability is all encompassing, right? There's so many fields and forms and areas of expertise you could take with that. It's just a matter of what your passion is, what you find interesting. Just know that you like and like to study or do, and just pursue that. Find an avenue of that within sustainability. There's always going to be then something out there for you. And with that, there's so many news outlets out there too that take all the different forms of sustainability. One particularly that I like to look at is called Biocycle. Biocycle.net just focuses on a lot of solid waste management practices and solutions, innovations. And I just love to read about that because I know that I can maybe one day incorporate into my work. So just finding what you're interested in that is in sustainability, and I know it will be because sustainability is so broad as a thing. You'll find something in there, and you'll find right kind of news outlets or whatnot that you can use to your advantage. And again, always be a student. Yeah.
I'd like to give everyone who is watching today, it looks like we've had over 35 participants the entire time. So they haven't been going in and out, but it's really great audience, and we appreciate you being here. While you maybe think of some questions that you have, I'd like to first kind of reach out to the panelists and see if you guys have questions for each other based on what you heard today or based on their job. So if you guys could maybe get us started with some questions that you have for each other. If not, then I'll come up with something. Andrew?
Yeah, I'd like to ask, so Emma is the master's program that she's doing at Georgia Tech. I actually applied for, unfortunately didn't get in, but won't be salty about it. But I'm gonna probably apply again. I would like to hear kind of her experience in further, or like in grad school for something, so like closely linked to sustainability and how she's finding that.
I second that question.
Okay, all right. So as clarification, I work at Georgia Tech full-time, and as one of our benefits, as I know Cameron knows, as a USG employee, you can attend classes. So that's always confusing sometimes to people. I'm not a TA or grad student full-time. I'm a full-time employee then. So the part-time aspect of going to school has probably been my greatest challenge, just because I work 40 hours and then I also I'm taking 2 classes each semester, but it's definitely very interesting. The probably best part about it is meeting so many other people. And right now it's a little weird, we see each other as these little squares. My classes they've all been virtual. So we relied a lot on virtual meetings and GroupMe, but I've met a lot of really great people. And as far as the curriculum, the professors are, very well attuned to sustainability, which is different from, as I mentioned, my undergrad. I was telling my professors about LEED, and my professors now have papers published about LEED. So that has also been really interesting to hear from people that have such a greater understanding of sustainability. And getting back to the academic side of things was a bit of a challenge. So if you're thinking about going straight to grad school, I think that's a good idea if you do want additional education. I had about 3 years of a pause, and even then I didn't really remember how to do bibliography. So some of those backtracking things to remember how to do. But if you're interested at all in the program, I would definitely encourage anyone to apply to it. It is typically 1 year if you're full-time. Otherwise, you can do it in about 2 years, as I'm doing part-time. It's been really great, especially to get some of the different skill sets that I didn't necessarily have. Like right now I'm taking a big data course, and in my job, we have a lot of different waste metrics that we report annually to STARS, which I know Cameron and Lori are very familiar with. But, it's always kind of this big, arduous task to go through all of this data. And it's usually just kind of reported in the amount. We don't get to do much analysis. So learning some of those things has also been a challenge, but very helpful and definitely helping me grow. So there's other specifics. Let me know.
I have a quick question for Evan. What you said, get a GA, what does that stand for?
So leadership and energy and environmental design is basically, we've been throwing around the acronym LEAD. So that stands for that. And the GA portion is the General Associate. And that is the first exam and certification you can pass. And I think no matter what you do in sustainability, if you have that certification, it allows you to understand the efficiencies and the importance of certain environmental improvements you can make to infrastructure. And it's a very interesting course, and I myself am studying for it right now. I'm hoping to pass it pretty soon. It's a bit 3 years too late, but I think it's a very useful tool and a great thing to understand.
Julia, you mentioned some challenges with the contract with the aluminum company, like what is an example of a solution that you have proposed, or maybe an idea that you have, and like what pushback do you receive?
Yes. So there are ideas that come to my mind, but since the waste industry is so specific, like right now I'm drinking out of a water hose. A fire hydrant would be more appropriate because of just the amount of information. Because a lot of the things that I'm learning is hazardous waste, how to deal with that, the regulations that are behind them. And a lot of hazardous waste, it can't be recycled. It's typically sent to an incinerator. But there are ways to recycle things such as like oil. Used oil, if it's spent, there are certain impurities in it, but if you send it to the right treatment plant, depending on if the client wants to pay for, say it's really far away, it depends. Is the rebate, the revenue that you're going to get from recycling that used oil, is it worth the transportation and all of that? And so I'd say like it's the general things around the plant that could be improved. Like we could be separating our waste streams better. But at the moment, the people who are throwing away the trash, they're combining the wood and the plastic and just all of the general debris that could be recycled. They are just throwing it into really big dump boxes. And we don't have the manpower within waste management to sift all that out. And we get paid, waste management gets paid by the client. So if the client is not willing to hire on another employee, then we don't have more manpower to just do more things. So I haven't necessarily proposed a lot of ideas because I understand why we can't do it as a company right now. So what I'm kind of in the midst of kind of divvying out in my brain is, and some of you guys might actually come to this point where you have to decide if you want to stick with the company because you see the long-term potential. So if you want to start your own business, say you want to start your own restaurant, you have to learn all the ins and outs of it. You got to learn how to bus a table. You got to learn how to work the cash register. And then over time, you'll be able to become, very well known within the business, and you'll meet all the right people. You'll know how to do all the little things. And so this is kind of where I am, where it's like, do I stay with waste management and stick with this company so that when they're ready to have these conversations about innovation and about green energy, I'll be the one to be able to say, hey, I have an idea. And then since waste management is such a big corporation, they have the money to fund these things. It's just a matter of time. Or you might come to a place where it's like, I need to find another job that is going to fit my needs a lot better, where I have all of these really itching good ideas and I want to start implementing them now. And so you kind of have to come to these crossroads and think, am I going to stick with it for a long time and be ready to jump on to those conversations with those ideas, or do I want to go somewhere a little bit more tailored to my path? So that's kind of some of the difficulties. And yeah, with the ideas, I'm still learning so much about the waste industry and about this specific unit. And I think once I become more familiar with the concepts and with hazardous waste and begin to build my network more, I'll be able to propose ideas that are more feasible and cost effective. So yeah.
Evan, did you want to?
Oh, she had me fired up. There's that, like what you're saying, do I stay in this industry? Do I learn transferable skills? Or do I leave where there's an industry that's making those headways? And I got to tell you, like, we're seeing the same thing in the real estate sustainability sphere. We're seeing that ESG is not coming fast enough. We pushed a pilot for ESG down about another 6 months. not only because it takes a lot of manpower to develop that that consulting capacity to advise the client on how they can be sustainable and report more or take advantage of different avenues of ESG and GRESB. But also it's not that scalable. Like, we really don't know how it's going to affect the market yet. Like what you were talking about with transportation and having the money to do something, but you know it'll have an immediate impact, and why aren't the resources being allocated? And ultimately the clients would want to pay for it, but it's going to cost waste management more money to build the infrastructure for it. So I think I'm seeing a lot of the same things. And you know, when COVID hit, I was in a different job. I was doing a little bit more of the finance side, and I thought, you know, do I stick with this company, or do I quit and go surfing in Costa Rica for the next 6 months and then go to the Peace Corps and then go to grad school? But I mean, ultimately I got pretty lucky with figuring out that there was a path in the company that I could take, and I had built relationships enough to be like, okay, here's where I want to be. And that yearning to, I know how you feel, because at Georgia College, it was like, we could make an immediate impact on everything we were doing. We could, if we wanted to implement change, we had the resources to do it. We had the passion. And then in this space, it's like, well, I don't think our shareholders are like that. Well, let's give it another year. And those are the kind of conversations that seem to have a bit of a timeline to them. So I feel you, Julia.
You mentioned COVID, which made me think about how plastic production and consumption has increased dramatically, specifically in food service, as well as, you know, takeout, and medical waste has grown exponentially. You know, we used to see random plastic bags. Now we see random plastic masks on the side of the road now. What have you seen? Have you seen any changes in response to the pandemic that maybe that are opportunities, instead of like, let's not maybe focus on the negative? Where are some opportunities that have arisen out of this? For anyone who wants to dive in.
I'm sorry, I'll make this quick too. That we've got more, part of our business is selling smart meters and getting clients to take advantage of smart meters. And a smart meter is essentially an electricity meter with Wi-Fi, and you can see exactly how much you're using and how much it's costing you. And I think when COVID hit, you couldn't go into buildings in certain areas. You know, you had a building in Portland that you couldn't exactly send people into because local ordinances. And so this isn't so much of the mask, you know, because I'm disgusted by all the masks I'm seeing on the ground. I started picking them up when I'm walking my dog. Probably not sanitary, but I've almost got my second vaccine. So once I get that, I should be okay to keep picking it up. But we have clients that did not have smart meters before, and now they have smart meters because they want to see how much they're using. They don't want to send a guy to go in to read the meter because they can't due to COVID regulations and safety precautions. And that's smart for a couple of reasons, because now they have their hand on the pulse of their energy usage, and they're able to in the future take advantage of any conservation goals they want to pursue.
As far as the waste perspective, on campus, we definitely saw a huge increase, especially when students returned in the fall and there was still a lot of uncertainty. I think the biggest positive side of that was, while a little intrusive and messy, because we had a lot of overflowing sidewalk cans since everyone was sitting outside and eating, especially over the weekends when the staff isn't always there. It did bring waste to the forefront of the conversation. So I had a lot of people asking me that usually, you know, waste is often kind of out of sight, out of mind. And that was a big shift for our dining services team, and really looking at the packaging that they were using. And luckily we were able to get them to commit to using paper clamshells that can be composted. And even if someone didn't have access to actively compost them, we do have a a beginning stage of collecting front of house composting and packaging, but obviously if they are landfilled, they can break down much more easily than, food contaminated plastic. So definitely seeing people looking at, if to go is the only option, how that can, make the best situation out of those options. And now that the virus is a little bit more understood, we do have a reusable to-go box program. So people can opt into it right now. It's still in the beginning stages, but it is available for people and still allows the dining halls to not have the crowds of people sitting inside and eating with their masks off, but students can take their meals out with them in a much more sustainable and reusable way.
In the last 10 minutes, could each of you give some advice, particularly to the students who may be on today's call, on what they can be doing today in their personal lives and also to build towards a career in this field? Andrew, will you start us off?
Yeah, I would say that sustainability in its reach is so broad. I mean, a lot of us are working in waste and the energy field, but there's, so many different areas. So I would say the best thing to do would be develop a lot of other soft skills, because when I was interviewing for jobs, a lot of the people interviewing you don't even know that much about sustainability, but they do know, when you're able to convince people of, to make different decisions and arguing things from a different, or, approaching how you talk about sustainability sometimes in a different way, to really sell, what all it takes to change into sustainability. I think that was a skill that I've kind of learned more to make other people relate to why I care. And then I did, because again, I'm interested in so many different aspects of sustainability, there's really not any particular, I guess my career continues to send me towards waste, but in composting, but I could do any of it and I would probably be equally as excited just because I like it all. So doing informational interviews and figuring out the aspects of the different jobs that you might be thinking about and what's the day-to-day, and then figuring out if that is the right fit. So if there's more, you want to go into more educational outreach, then I would start looking into those opportunities now, because that's, I think, when we were talking about how the field is going to grow, I think it's not going to be full-time sustainability professionals. It's going to be a lot of people supporting those larger structures that are going to be changing, hopefully. So yeah, I think it would be best to just find all those different, what skills and jobs descriptions you find interesting, and then gear your experiences towards that. Maybe not so much the title, but that's what I did at first.
All right, thanks, Andrew. I want to give some opportunity for students to ask questions. I know Caroline mentioned she would like to ask a question. Go ahead.
Hi. Okay, first of all, sorry if my computer is making a big noise. Hi. My name is Caroline, obviously environmental science major. I graduated in December. So I am, once the semester is over, literally the second it's over, going to start applying to full-time jobs. I interned with UPS as a sustainability intern. So I've dabbled in that a bit, and I kind of want to lean more towards the environmentally technical stuff. I'm not ruling out sustainability, but I'm going to start with the environmentally technical stuff like Arcadis and Burns and McDonnell and whatever. I have a few questions. So my first question is, do you feel like your GPA had a big impact on the job that you ended up getting? 2, how many, literally if you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but how many job applications did you put out? And 3, I just lost the third question. No. it'll come back to me. But so I transferred here from Georgia Tech. I was an environmental engineering major, and now I'm environmental science. So I'm gonna be like focusing more on the environmental science side. But like my friends at Georgia Tech who are in different fields have literally put out like 175 applications and heard back from like one person. So like, and they have like outstanding GPAs. So I'm wondering about that. Yeah.
I would like to answer your question, Caroline. First of all, great questions. I remember having the exact same questions for myself when I was graduating. And what I can say is one of the first questions about the GPA, you might hear differently from your professors, which is totally reasonable. But in my experience, getting out and networking and trying to understand the position, like what Andrew was saying, I really want to reiterate what Andrew's point was, which is, you know, getting out, meeting people, asking what they're doing. That is really what gets you the job in the end, because people do business with people they like ultimately. And I think that's a tough truth. I think I work with people who went to Georgia Tech and who went to Emory, and I'm the only Georgia College graduate besides the manager who's my boss's 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 boss. And I felt like I was competing with kids from Georgia Tech when I graduated from Georgia College, but ultimately I think in the end, my experience in trying to meeting people and trying to get to know the companies and using tactful networking skills really is what got me the advantage in the end. It might be different for other people, but, and also it depends on if you're working for the government. You mentioned you want to do the environmental side. But I have friends who do more environmental consulting work that work at, oh my God, I'm blanking, the consulting company in Midtown. It'll come to me, I know, before the end of this. But then your other question was in regards to, what was the other question? I forgot.
Just like how many like sheer applications did you put
right.
out?
Golden rule, expect to hear back from 20%. Unfortunately, your friends at Georgia Tech are probably doing it right. It's a tough job market out there. But obviously, like if you hit me up on LinkedIn, I'd be happy to connect you with other people, like because I think you'll find that a lot of people that you share similar experiences with will be more than happy to connect you with people to talk to or to reach out to. But ultimately, I think I maybe got that from my dad or from somebody, but expect to hear back from 20% of all job applications, which gives you a wide breadth of available jobs that you can take advantage of.
I remembered my third question. Sorry to interrupt. I'm just going to say it before I forget. And then my third question was like, for every job application, did you put a cover letter? Because like I know when I was at Georgia Tech, we had this like panel of employees and 4 of them said they don't even read cover letters and the other 4 did. So like, I'm just probably going to do cover letters for everybody, but that was my other question.
I would just say it depends.
Jake, what do you think?
Write a cover letter. If you have the time, write it. Look, if you want something, you got to get it. So if you really want this job or whatever, you can or cannot, or excuse me, and you have the option to write a cover letter, write a cover letter. Just do it. You express yourself. If they're willing to take the time to actually read you and read that, then they're taking the time for you. Period.
So I recommend, I don't know, like if you've shared your resume with other people, but having other people review your resume instead of just keeping it to yourself and to like your family members, because your family members are going to be like, that sounds amazing. That sounds so good. Like everything. But they're not going to know really what you're talking about unless they studied environmental science. So I utilized a lot of my professors and then like once you do get once you hear that job offer and they say, hey, we want to interview you, you have to make sure that you're ready and that you know yourself and you know your experiences and that you're also not speaking, depending on the job, but like it's very easy to start using language that they don't understand, jargon that's kind of foreign to them. So just be ready to be just be personable and to have those soft skills. So just be ready for those interviews.
Know your audience.
Take your resume to Bruce Snyder. Take it to Dr. He took a red pen through my resume And it was so good at the end of it. And we did that at the max, and I remember that, and it turned out great. Like spaces that you don't even see. So, yeah.
Well,
Thank you
thank
so
you to
much.
everyone. I really appreciate Cameron and Lori for putting this together, to all the professors that are on the call, as well as all the students for coming and listening to these young alumni that are in the field. I welcome you, and I hope it's okay with you guys to reach out to them on LinkedIn. If you have more questions, I'm sure they'd probably be happy to answer them for you. And I'm going to probably turn it over to Cameron or Lori for any concluding remarks.
Can I make one last interjection real quick?
Sure, Jay, just
All
pause
right,
if you
cool.
want.
Awesome. Just to this last person, Alexa, a really, really quick answer question that you had about what is the best advice applying for jobs in this field is just use your connections and try and make more connections. And like we've all talked about, dive into your field, dive into the people that you know might be in this field or within this area, and just keep trying to talk to people. That is the best way to make things happen and make connections. That's all.
And I would be remiss for not thanking Evan, Emma, Julia, Andrew, and Jake. Yeah, Julia.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just disconnecting my phone. Sorry.
That's fine. I wanted to thank all of you so much for being here. Cameron, again, thanks for inviting everyone.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Just to reiterate the gratitude that's already been expressed for, taking time out of your busy schedules to join us and give some really great advice to current students. I don't know if anyone caught on a theme here, but all of the alumni on this panel completed internships through the Sustainability Office at Georgia College. So I'm going to use it as a plug to say that our application is still currently open for internships for the 2021-2022 academic year. And those applications the application can be accessed via handshake. So I think that will close us out. We're 1 minute past 4:30. So thank you everyone for joining. And I hope you all had a very great experience and learned a lot. So with that, we will close out the